Hello everybody, my name's Pat. Welcome to my course on your mind. This course is all about you, who you are, what means the most to you. Now, with that in mind, these chats should mean different things to different people. Although you share similarities with everybody in this room, including your teacher, you are all different in important ways. There is no correct way to engage with what I'm saying. There's no necessity for you to even agree with me. In each chat, I will invite you to listen to the ideas I share and think on them for a while. My intention for you is that by participating in these chats, you will discover something useful, something that will help you improve your life. Now, you will undoubtedly have numerous questions throughout the whole course. At least if I'm doing a good job, you will. Now, as they arise, I invite you to write them down and you can discuss them in class. And I'm always reachable at pat@wolfacademy.ie. I'll be really excited to see what I haven't made clear and the different questions that I might have inspired in you. I'm also available online at Pat Psychology Masters on YouTube and at All About You on Instagram. Now, you might be asking yourself, why should I be listening to this beardy fucker talk about the mind? And you'd be dead right to be asking yourself that question. So let me tell you a little bit about myself first and an idea that struck me about 6 years ago, something I call having nothing to hide. So me. My name is Pat McKeown. I grew up in Kilberry, just outside Navan, County Meath. I played football, hurling, soccer, rugby, all to a very poor level growing up. I didn't love primary school and I didn't enjoy secondary school that much either. I kind of hated them, to be honest. I had a few friends who I got on fairly well with, but if you ask them, you'll find even those relationships were fraught at times. I was fairly angry. In my early childhood, I suffered an awful lot of bereavement. My dad died just before I turned 3, and I lost a lot of aunts and uncles tragically over the years. When I was 7, I moved into a place where I became deeply unhappy. Life was very difficult for me. I missed my dad. I missed my aunts and uncles. I was confused, sad, worried, or angry for what felt like most of the time. After I did my Leaving Cert in St Patrick's Classical School in Navan, I went to Dublin City University, DCU, to study physics. I actually really wanted to study theoretical physics at the time, but I didn't have the confidence to pursue it. I thought it'd be too hard for me. So I said I'd stick with something I thought would be a little simpler: experimental physics. 3 weeks in and I realised I made a big mistake. I hated it. I went into damage control mode at this point and was looking at what I could change to. And I ended up moving into PE and biology. So that was basically to be a PE teacher. 7 weeks later, I'm realising teaching is not for me, and I end up dropping out of college altogether. Now I stay living up in Dublin and I begin working in a local shop. Throughout this period, I have pretty bad acne, and I start taking tablets called Roaccutane for my skin. Now, if any of you in the room watching have bad acne or what you think is bad acne, I encourage you to stay a million miles away from this so-called medicine. Roaccutane weakened my joints and generated a form of anxiety in me which I had never really experienced before. I was having multiple panic attacks daily. I had to take time off work due to these panic attacks, and my mum had to take time off from her work to look after me. Thankfully, after a couple of months, I managed to kind of get my anxiety under more control, and I went back to college. This time I was going to UCD to study neuroscience, which is just the study of the brain and the nervous system. Anyway, it was here in UCD that I attended a talk which ended up giving me the idea of having nothing to hide when it came to my emotional experience. I'm going to revisit that in a little bit. So a few years after graduating from neuroscience in UCD, I ended up going back to DCU to do a master's in psychology, which I'm just after graduating from. So here I am talking to you today. That's a whirlwind adventure of the life of Pat McKeown. Now, I'm not certain what the future holds for me, but I am intending on pursuing further training in some sort of psychology or psychotherapy. And psychotherapy is basically just counselling. And if it's not already clear, I have a deep interest in the human mind. Your mind, my mind. What makes us similar and what makes us different. So I mentioned attending a talk in UCD which inspired me to have nothing to hide when it came to my emotional experience. That talk was from a British politician called Alistair Campbell. I wasn't expecting to hear anything life-changing from this man. I didn't really care much for him. He was spin doctor for Tony Blair's government and he was fairly controversial. How wrong I was about not finding something interesting in what he had to say. So up until this talk, I had kept the vast majority of my suffering secret. None of my friends really knew how I had suffered, how angry, sad, confused I was. I never told them. My siblings even didn't really know either. Now, my mum knew a fair bit, but I even kept secrets from her. I never felt comfortable talking about these experiences, to be honest. Now, that has drastically changed. The line from Alistair Campbell that night that changed how I thought about well-being and my emotional experience went something like what I'll say now. If you're unwell, don't man up. Don't pull yourself together. Don't just get on with it. Be honest to yourself and the people around you. There's never anything to hide or be ashamed of. There's never anything to hide or be ashamed of. I invite you to ask yourself, what has happened in your life that you've never told anyone? Something that you haven't told your friends, maybe you've not even told your family. Now I invite you to ask yourself, why haven't you told anybody? Does your secrecy serve you? Is it good for you? Or does your secrecy burden you? Is it bad for you? I'd like you to think of both the long-term and short-term answers to these questions. One last time. Does your secrecy serve you? Or does your secrecy burden you? I found having nothing to hide to be an extremely powerful idea. It's become an extremely helpful guideline for me. So did my secrets serve me or did they burden me? They definitely burdened me. It wasn't until I shared them that I realised their burden. When I shared them, there was a weight lifted. In summary, I'm delighted for all the kindness all of you and your teacher have shown for letting me share my story and for listening to me, and to my idea of having nothing to hide. Have a think about what having nothing to hide could do for you.